I know I promised a classic match review with this video, and I'm certainly going to give that to you. That's going to be the main portion of this video, but I have to at least briefly touch upon Total Nonstop Deletion, the latest episode of TNA Impact. I'm at a complete loss for words for what I just saw. That show, specifically the Tag Team Apocalypto match, was one of the most insane things I have ever seen in professional wrestling, and I highly recommend you watch it. I can't guarantee you will like it. I will say that you will never forget it, and it's definitely worth checking out and commenting on. I definitely plan, honestly, like I said, I'm at almost a complete loss for words of what I just saw. Like, my mind just feels like it just worked too hard trying to process everything that I saw in that match. I have to review this show. I absolutely have to review this show. So I'm going to do that in the end of the year video early next week, where I said I was going to do a review of Roadblock and do my end of the year awards. I have to throw Total Nonstop Deletion in there. I fucking have to, because I have to talk about that fucking show. That was wow. I mean, just fucking wow. So yeah, you have that to look forward to. A little add-on to the group of videos that I'm giving you over the next few days. I also want to comment on, and I guess I'll elaborate more in the end of the year video early next week, but I also want to elaborate or touch up on the announcement that WWE is doing a UK weekly show with UK talents. Apparently Nigel McGuinness is involved, which he brings credibility to it, obviously, given his reputation and who he is. And there's going to be a new WWE UK championship, and this is going to be part of a weekly show that they do. It's an interesting concept. It makes me wonder if... I don't know. Immediately I started thinking, because TNA, they seem to have their most successful shows in the UK. So it makes me wonder if that's them trying to, like, just snuff TNA out, like, for good. And that's part of what they're trying to do by doing that. I mean, I don't know, but... it should be interesting. I'm sure it'll be a really good weekly show that will most likely be better than their main roster product. Because that's the weird thing about WWE. Most of the stuff they do is good. You look at NXT, it's awesome. You look at the CWC, it's awesome. 205 Live, it's a solid show. Various other network shows that they do, like Legends with JBL, and trying to think of some other ones. What was the one I was thinking of? Most of the documentaries they do are great. So most of the content that the WWE produces is actually not that bad. It's actually pretty good. Their worst stuff is typically their main roster shows. It's really bizarre if you think about it. It's like the things they're most famous for are the worst things they produce. I don't understand it, but hey, what can you do? Future videos upcoming, as I already announced earlier this week. You'll be getting my next Star Wars review tomorrow night. You'll be getting my review of Rogue One Saturday night. I'm already hearing really good things about Rogue One. Some of my friends have already seen it, and they said it was fantastic. So I'm really, really excited for it. So yeah, you'll be getting my review of Rogue One on Saturday. And then, like I said, early next week, you'll be getting... before we get to that one, Sunday, I still plan on doing my live Q&A session. I haven't set a time or like any specifics other than that. I just know I want to do it sometime Sunday morning, maybe into the afternoon. We'll see how long it goes and how many people are even interested in me doing it. But have questions ready. I know in the last video I said I was going to keep it wrestling specific, but screw it. Why not? Let's just do non-wrestling questions too. Just throw it all out there. Let's not have much of a format to this. Let's just let it be free range and just see what the hell happens. If I get 600 people or if I get 6 people, asking questions, it doesn't really matter. I as long as you keep asking questions, I don't really care. So there'll be no format to it. It'll just be whatever I get to. But anyway, yeah. So I want to do the live Q&A video, and then early next week you'll be getting the end of the year video with the end of the year awards and reviews of Total Nonstop Deletion and Roadblock, and that'll be the last video you get from me in 2016. Not 2017, as I stated on Twitter, but to kick off this string of videos, classic match review. I posted the poll on Twitter. I said that since it's December, I thought it would be cool to go back and look at a classic Starrcade match because December became kind of the month of Starrcade. Much like how last month I said November, that's a good time to do an ECW match because they did November to Remember. Starrcade, which was WCW, their biggest show of the year, felt appropriate. Let's go back and do a classic Starrcade match in December. That seems to fit. And I know I do a lot of WCW matches on this thing, but with these classic match reviews, but like I said, it's material that doesn't always get a lot of coverage, so I'm really happy to go back and do it. Although technically this isn't strictly WCW. The match that I ended up selecting was from Jim Crockett Promotions in the NWA back in 1985. So this was before the NWA had officially kind of transitioned into becoming WCW, and but Starrcade was still around before WCW became the national brand that it became. And this was the third Starrcade, I believe. Yeah, because the first one was in '83. Technically, it was not in December. It was actually in November, but still, whatever. I'm still sticking with the Starrcade theme anyway. And the match that got selected, and I'm very happy it got selected because I really have a lot of things to say about it. Magnum TA versus champion Tully Blanchard with Baby Doll in his corner in a steel cage I Quit match for the United States Championship. Now, first of all, like I said, I'm very happy that this match won the poll, mainly because the three matches I picked were this one, Piper versus Valentine in the dog collar match, and Sting versus Luger versus Flair from '95. And I put this match on there hoping that it would win, but I also thought I wonder, it was also kind of a social experiment on my part. It's are people just going to go for the names? Are they going to go for, or are they going to go for which match they legitimately think is the best? And I think maybe if WWE had posted this poll, you'd probably see more of a name recognition style result. They'd probably look at Sting, Flair, and Luger and just go, oh, well, that one, because it has all the stars in it. I mean, no match screams WCW more than Luger versus Sting versus Flair. I mean, that's about as WCW as you can possibly get. And Piper versus Valentine, obviously Piper, big name, and the first really famous match to come out of Starrcade. So it was really a pleasant surprise that Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard won, because it's really not a sexy pick when you look at the names. Tully Blanchard, very talented guy, great technical wrestler, great tag team wrestler. He was one half of the Brainbusters with Arn Anderson, which was his most successful run in the WWE. I think his only run in the WWE. But unfortunately, he's kind of like Arn and Ric Flair are kind of known for being the front runners of the Four Horsemen, and Tully is kind of remembered as just being one of the guys that was in it, even though he was in the original incarnation. And he's just remembered as being one of the Four Horsemen, and that's it. But he really was a very talented worker. Like I said, great mat technician, great heel. I mean, he could get you to hate his guts, and that really plays into why this match works so well. And then you have Magnum TA, who had a huge upside to him and was very likable, very charismatic, and had that kind of southern redneck appeal, but he also had the likable babyface appeal. He was young, he was athletically gifted, a huge upside to Magnum TA, and it's really unfortunate that he didn't get the success that he should have. I think it was a car accident that ultimately cut him down in his prime, but probably he's one of the most talented guys that never got a run in the WWE. I don't think he ever had a run in the WWE. If he did, it didn't last long and it was very brief. But very talented worker, huge upside that unfortunately it just got cut short. And so really you have two guys that have really been underrated by the history books and don't always get the recognition that they probably deserved, or probably, in Magnum TA's case, should have gotten down the road at some point. I mean, he's a guy that probably should have been a world champion, but this match, I mean, old NWA fans know about it, and I think now that we have the WWE Network, I think more and more people are discovering these things, and I think that's the major upside of the WWE Network, is that younger fans and newer fans are really getting exposed to the really good stuff that was outside of the WWF, and I've talked about it before, how I've always been kind of the guy that defends WCW. Not when they do bad stuff. I've thrown the Doomsday Cage match under the bus so many times I don't even know how to. I don't even know how to talk about it anymore. Chamber of Horrors, you can't defend that. The Finger Poke of Doom can't defend that. A lot of the mistakes they made during the Monday Night Wars can't defend that. But I'm always the first guy to point out the great stuff that they did. DDP, one of my favorite guys that ever came out of there. Sting versus Vader, the first series of matches that I ever fell in love with. That stuff was great. The Rise of Goldberg was awesome, and it was a phenomenon. The build-up to Sting and Hogan was awesome. Match itself was a disaster, but the build-up was amazing and made for great television week to week. So, when WCW did something good, or when anything outside of the WWE or WWF is good, I like to talk about it because I like to bring attention to things that, expand your horizons, especially, in art forms. You don't want to watch, at least I don't, you don't want to watch one type of movie. I mean, I would hate it if, I like the Marvel movies, but I don't want every movie to be a Marvel movie. I like to have different experiences and different things, and I like to experience art in different ways, and wrestling, sorry about that, wrestling is no different. There's a lot of different stuff out there, and I'm always more than happy to bring attention to really good stuff. And I think with the network, I think more and more people are discovering WCW, NWA, ECW, AWA, and various other things. So, me having to defend WCW is becoming less and less common, it feels. And now you see guys like Sting and Goldberg come to WWE, and they get massive ovations. And I think maybe the WWE Network, whether by design or not, has kind of like reminded people and helped people discover that, hey, maybe these guys were special after all. And there are matches and moments like this, like the Magnum TA Tully Blanchard match, that deserve to be watched, deserve to be viewed by wrestling fans all over the world and at all different age groups, and deserves to be like critiqued and discussed as an important match in the art form of professional wrestling, and why it is so special and why it's so good. And I said in my last video, it might be the best match in Starrcade history. There's a few other ones I would throw up there, but this one's very high on my list. And really, what it comes down to, why this match was so great. It had the build-up. It had and nothing fancy, nothing too crazy. It's just Tully Blanchard beat Magnum TA for the U.S. title, and then Magnum TA went on this long stretch for months and months and months where he wanted to get back into the title picture and ultimately take the title from Tully. And very basic, nothing too crazy, like I said. But it, the hatred felt very real. And the intensity between the two guys felt very real. And that type of stuff, if you can, and this is something that modern day products, especially WWE, kind of mess up, is like they think they can just decide who a star is, put two personalities together, and just have them wrestle each other 50 times, and then that'll generate interest and that'll be exciting. But there's something to be said when you really make us wait for those matches, and you really make us wait for those payoffs, especially if it's a rematch. I've said this before, I hate the automatic rematch clause, because then it's just, you do the match a week later or the next night, and it doesn't mean anything, because you didn't do anything to build it up. And I hate rematch clauses for that reason. It's like, no, I feel like if you've got something special, you should build up to the rematch and keep the story flowing and keep it going and make people really want to chomp at the bits and see that rematch. And that's something that they did here. And the intensity got so strong that this match needed two gimmicks on it. And it's funny, there were actually two cage matches on this pay-per-view. The other one was, I've already forgotten. It was a tag team match. I've already forgotten exactly who was in it. I didn't watch the whole show when I was doing this, but I have watched the show before. I know it was a tag team match. And so I guess I can't blame Lockdown for starting that. There is a precedent for doing multiple cage matches on one pay-per-view, although I still hate that idea. And honestly, this match was so good. The other cage match, it's no surprise I don't remember who was in it, because it's like, you can't top that. I'm sorry. You're not going to top it. Just let that one be the only cage match. Although it was interesting that this particular Starrcade did do the split venues, where one half of the show was in the Omni and the other one was, I forget where the other one was, but it was kind of like a precursor to WrestleMania 2, really. WrestleMania, because I always thought that was an interesting idea to do that. Hold half the card in one place and hold half the card in the other place. I thought maybe WWE should have done that when they did ECW. Well, they called it an ECW reunion show, One Night Stand 2006, although it really wasn't a reunion show. It was WWE versus ECW, and I always felt like that's how the show should have been marketed. And they should have held half the show in like a typical WWE venue, and then hold the other half in the Hammerstein Ballroom, which was like ECW's homeland. So, but that's, total sidebar. But anyway, you get to this match. And you get Tully Blanchard come out with the, baby doll as his valet and the United States champion. And the fans just want to see Magnum TA rip him to shreds. And from the word go, this match, nothing scientific, nothing fancy, not even a lot of high spots. They really didn't do anything. They didn't do much in this match, to be perfectly honest. Nobody dove off the cage. Nobody, there weren't any crazy power bombs or suplexes or anything like that. It was, from the word go, it was just two guys beating the ever-living shit out of each other, and they just pounded each other into oblivion. It was just a violent bloodbath. And it was funny, when I watched this show on the network, and I fast-forwarded to this match, but before the show began, they said that it was rated MA, and I wonder if it was because of this match and how violent it got, because quite honestly, it was pretty tough to watch, because it was so believably violent and believably brutal that these two were just beating the ever-living dog shit out of each other. It makes me wonder if that's why this particular show, because, fuck, if WWE had edited it, I would have been super pissed, but, yeah, it was just a violent bloodbath, and not violent in the way that, I hate to keep throwing WWE under the bus here, but it's not violent in the way that, like, WWE sells violence now, like, oh, they went through tables, and oh, they dove off ladders, and gimmicked the hell out of this, and they had a bad fall, and all these other things. I'm like, no, that's not necessarily violent. Those can look like cartoony stunts, and don't always look believable, and always aren't set up believably. Here, it's just, this was violent in the same way that Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13 was, or Sexy Star versus Mariposa. To use a more recent example, Sexy Star versus Mariposa from Lucha Underground in the No Mas match. This was just two guys just hammering each other and throwing each other into the wall of the cage, and just trying to beat each other into oblivion, and, both guys became a bloody mess, and, there were moments where they would take the microphone and just ram it in each other's faces and just yelling for them to say, I quit, and the guys sounded like they were in legitimate agony the entire time. You had a clear-cut babyface that the fans were supporting, and you had a clear-cut heel in Tully Blanchard that was great at getting heat. Again, this is really a clear sign that these two are, this pay-per-view was main evented by Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes, and these two stole the show. This might be a more extreme example of stealing the show than WrestleMania 3. Because everybody says that Savage and Steamboat stole the show, and they did. But Hogan and Andre is still a legendary match, and people remember it. And here you have Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes, two of the all-time great icons in wrestling. Not a lot of people remember that match. But this is the match from this Starrcade that really stands out. Magnum TA versus Tully Blanchard. And I think that is fascinating. Two guys that just never made it to that main event level, were mid-carders for most of their career, and often get overlooked, and they were the ones that stole the show. And, you don't see matches like this anymore. I would love to see what young WWE fans might look at this and piss their pants, because it's like, this was pretty intense and pretty, like I said, it was hard for me to watch at points because it was so believably violent, so I can't imagine what kids would do. But cool badass kids would just be like, yeah, blood, that's awesome. But yeah, I would be fascinated to see what young fans think of this, because there aren't a lot of near falls. It's an I Quit match, so what can you really do with near falls? But like I said, not a lot of high spots. Nobody dives off the cage or anything crazy like that. But it just felt real, and that's something. And I go back to this all the time. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how crazy the moves are. It doesn't matter if you jump off the top rope. Don't jump off the top rope. If you have that story and you have those characters and you want to see them fight, you've got the crowd eating out of your hands, and it doesn't matter what you do. They just have to buy it, and that's all you need. And I bought this, and it's funny. This is the third time I've watched this match, and I bought it every step of the way. It was a perfect example of the art of professional wrestling, both from a storytelling perspective and a like a psychology perspective, but also from that less is more style, believe it or not, because like I said, they didn't do many moves. They didn't do much at all, but you felt like you saw a war. And that's incredible to me. That is the art of pro wrestling, because and I kind of apply this logic to movies too, and it's one of the reasons I'm down on CGI and the overuse of CGI in movies. I've always been a believer in art through adversity, and it's one of the reasons movies like Star Wars and Jaws and the stop motion Ray Harryhausen movies and the Godzilla movies and King Kong and movies like that, why those movies really hold up for me, because I know so much work went into getting those movies right, and so much work went into creating the images of the special effects that went into making those movies, and a lot of it wasn't always easy. Look at Jaws, look at Star Wars, for a lot of difficulty in making a movie. So, and today CGI is just easy. You just go on the computer, you animate it, and you just flap it onto whatever green screen that you filmed on, and it's a lot easier to make movies. And I don't feel like with the ease comes, in a weird way, it comes less effort. And I don't know. Back in those days with pro wrestling, you didn't have guys go out there and do a bunch of high spots and everything. They would try and find ways to keep the crowd excited without having to go too crazy. And this was a perfect example of it. And like I said, you felt like you saw two guys just beat the ever-living holy hell out of each other, and they didn't do that much. And that is amazing to me. And that is absolutely incredible. And man, I'm so glad I rewatched this match, because it's things like that. That is pro wrestling magic that is hard to touch. And it really all came to a head at the end of the match, where Baby Doll threw a wooden chair over the top of the ring. And wooden chairs, whenever I used to see, you don't see them much anymore, but back in the old days, in the 80s, when you see wooden chairs, I normally didn't like those spots, because they look fake as hell, because they would just shatter into a million pieces. Like, there's no way that's even close to being a real wooden chair. Here, Tully Blanchard takes the chair, breaks it into pieces, and takes the sharp edge of one of the broken pieces and tries to jam it into Magnum TA's eyes. And oh my god, that crowd, you would have thought like a horror movie was in progress, the way they were reacting to it. It looked nasty, that it's like, oh my god, like even watching it again, I kind of lost myself, and I was on the edge of my seat, like, oh my god, don't stab him in the eye, that's too crazy, don't do that, that's insane. And Magnum was able to break it, take the spike, and ram it into Tully's forehead to get him to he didn't say I quit, he said yes, 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 yes. Which to me worked, because it signified that he's in like so much pain. He's like, yes, just stop it, I didn't fucking tell. I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy. So it was also nice to see an I Quit match that legitimately felt like the guy got beaten to submission, because a lot of times they either cheat it, or they find some way to skirt around them actually saying I quit, or the coward just says it too easily, so you feel like you get screwed out of a payoff. But here it's like, no, I'm good. I'm good. It's like this was just flawless. This was just flawlessly done. And I can't guarantee you'll like this match. I think it's something that a lot of old school fans will adore. I think if you love the NWA and you love that classic blood and guts wrestling, this is a must see without a doubt. You need to see this match. And I guarantee you, if you are one of those people, you've probably seen it more times than I have. It's just that special. And if you're a younger fan and you're used to seeing a more spot-heavy style of wrestling, or something with false finishes or things akin to that, I still recommend watching it just to see. It's like, well, there's different ways of working a wrestling match. And that's why I always appreciate it when I see breaks from the formula. And a lot of matches today are very formulaic, to where I can almost set a stopwatch to it. But here, something different. And it's, it almost feels... Watching it again today, it almost felt like a breath of fresh air, and like it was fresh, new, and exciting all over again. And that is a huge compliment that I can give this match. It just, even after all these years, it still feels fresh and exciting. And like I said, if you like matches like Steve Austin versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13, I think this will be very much in your wheelhouse, because it's not... this is a believably violent brawl in every sense. This is not a weapon fest. This is not a spot fest. This is not cartoony in any way, shape, or form. This is a straight up down and dirty, blood and guts war between two wrestlers. And just, again, beautifully told story, brutal as hell. And excuse me, and like I said, it's one of the... if it's not the number one best, it's easily one of the best matches in Starrcade history, without question. And I was happy, I was thrilled to go back and rewatch this match. It was a pleasure, without question. I loved it. So that concludes my classic match review, and with that, like I said, I've got a bunch of videos lined up for you over the next few days, so be on the lookout for that. But as we're winding down for this week, and as we get closer to the holidays, I hope you all are doing well, and I will see you all later.